All of you fellow type 1s out there, today I'm going to ask you if you know about these situations where you will need more insulin. That's what we're going to talk about today. So be sure to watch to the end of today's video so you learn everything that I'm teaching today. Maybe you're just finding me. If so, welcome. I started doing Facebook Lives back in March, so maybe you've been following me this whole time. I've had type 1 for 40 years, and I work with type 1s all over the world. I have for 10 years. And I wanted to come on live because when this whole COVID world began, I just was really moved about how stressful it was for all of us with type 1 to be hearing, we have this high risk. And so I've just been sharing education, inspiration, motivation since March on Facebook. And so today I come live now right around 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock Eastern. Sorry for all of you around the world. Hopefully you can make the time zone adjustment. I know I have a lot of followers in Europe and Australia. And I actually have had some people in Asia lately too, in South America, which is cool. But I come on Mondays and Wednesdays at this time. So I I was just moved to really help us with type 1. I feel like most of us have never gotten the full toolbox of tools that we need to really be able to master our blood sugar levels. And I've had type 1 for 40 years, so I walk in your shoes every day. And the majority of people I talk to tell me that they just don't feel like they ever were taught what they needed to know, right? We're given like this much information, and then it doesn't work that great to get good blood sugar levels because you don't need this much information. You need this much information. So that's why I've made all my courses and do all these videos for you guys. So my passion is to help as many type 1s around the world as I can. And today I want to talk about scenarios when we need more insulin. So I was thinking about this today because as it becomes winter, for those of us in the Western Hemisphere, you might be more sedentary, right? Anytime you're more sedentary, your insulin sensitivity goes down, which means you might need a little bit more of a basal rate, or you'll need a bigger dose than normal for your meal. But that's only one of many what I call incident scenarios for temporary basal increases, okay? This can also be the case if you're getting sick, if your body's trying to fight off anything. When we get sick, we have more insulin resistance in our body, so we need more background insulin. Another scenario, which is after you eat a really high-fat meal. High-fat meal causes temporary insulin resistance. It can for 6, 10, 12 hours. So it might not be high carb, but as I teach in my Why Carb Counting Doesn't Work course, if we eat a lot of high fat, we're going to need more insulin over the next several hours after the meal. So that's another instance where we need a temporary higher amount of insulin. And steroid shots. If you ever get a steroid shot, you'll be high for days unless you don't raise your insulin. And also women on their cycle. A lot of women have temporary insulin resistance a few days before day 1 of their cycle. Now, how do we make adjustments for all of this? Well, you definitely need to work with your provider and find all of this out. I am a consultant for patients with type 1, so I teach this in my courses. But diabetes is really a dance. It's not precise. We kind of have to get really good data with ourselves and get to learn what our body does and give ourselves the best, educated guess that we can for all these changes. When I work with people with type 1, I can give you guys ranges of like, well, do you need a 10% increase? Do you need a 50% increase? You kind of have to get to know your body to know what the increase or decrease is. But I do love to just educate you guys on just keeping your brain active, thinking about, okay, certain scenarios, I'm going to need more insulin. If I'm sedentary, if I'm getting sick, if I'm a female and on my cycle, if I've had a steroid shot, if I've had a high-fat meal, all of these things, we're going to temporarily need more insulin, okay? I'm going to pull up my handout. I have a whole temporary basal handout that I go over temp basal. Where's my temp basal handout? Um, and then there are instances where we need temporary less insulin. And that is like if you lose weight, if you're super active, right? Alcohol actually can cause, well, alcohol is challenging because it can raise you and decrease you. That's a whole nother story. Let's see, I've covered everything in my handout. So yeah, so I just wanted to let you guys know that there's a lot of scenarios we need to think about when it comes to understanding our background insulin. Number one, I want you to know how to test it to see if your background insulin on a daily basis is even correct. Make sure you know how to do that. Work with your provider, or I teach that in my How to Get Off the Blood Sugar Roller Coaster course. That's the first thing, you get that basal rate set correctly. And then the second thing is you have to think about all these other scenarios. Are you sedentary? Are you getting sick? Did you have a steroid shot? Are you a female on your cycle leading up to your cycle, right? Did you have a high fat meal? All these things are going to need more insulin, okay? Let's see. Nick says, wish MDI was that helpful. I don't know what you mean by that. I'm on MDI. So when I need more insulin, I just do microdosing over the next several hours, or I raise my long acting, which isn't as precise, of course, as a pump, because you can just increase the basal for a certain percentage. But let's see. Nick says I'm the only one to teach this. I know, isn't that? It's just, well, thank goodness you guys found me. But that's why I'm teaching it, because I know how deeply we all need it. So everybody that comes to me says they've never learned this. So Wendy says, this may not exactly fit in, but you were talking about fat. So you could tell me what you feel is the best snack at bedtime. That's kind of a hard question to answer because I don't know why you feel like you need a snack at bedtime. If you feel like you need a snack at bedtime, I would say you should check your basals. Or your long acting. I use those words interchangeably, basal or long acting, even though I know one refers to pump and one refers to shot. So my goal is that you understand how to dose your insulin so properly that you only have to eat when you're hungry, right? If you know how to dose your insulin properly, you shouldn't have to have all these snacks to avoid lows. If you're having to have all these snacks to avoid lows, you have too much insulin in your body, okay? So I know it's, I don't know how many years you've had type 1, but, I certainly grew up being told I had to have snacks all the time. But that's because we were so terrified of when my NPH or regular was going to hit, and then we didn't know when I was going to go low, and everybody was scared of going low, and just in this state of confusion and unknown about your lows. But if you know how to properly dose your insulin now, you shouldn't have to worry about when you're going to go low. Lori, that's a really good question. Lori asks, is microdosing the same thing as insulin stacking? Okay, well, microdosing is something that's necessary when we eat these meals that are very extended, like high protein, high fat meals. One shot doesn't work well to cover a meal that digests slowly, right? Because the one shot goes like this, but the meal digests like this. So stacking is taking too much insulin back to back and then going low. So a poorly timed microdose, yes, you can say that's insulin stacking. So insulin stacking is the negative of doing too much insulin all at once. But microdosing, I like to think of as a positive term when done correctly. So it's a fine line, and that's why these little Facebook Lives aren't enough for you to fully grasp how to do all this. But it's for you to either reach out to my courses or to your provider or for any help to your healthcare team to learn how to do this properly. But yeah, you don't want to insulin stack, right? Insulin stack is a little bit of insulin, too much insulin, too much insulin, too much insulin, and then you crash. But a properly microdosed meal is just the right amount of little bit of insulin over time that avoids a high or a low, right? Too much microdosing, too much micro shots will make you go low, sure. So it's a fine line. I know many of you have been told you can never take another shot or bolus for 2 or 4 hours after your first one. Well, I don't teach that because there's a lot of scenarios that don't fit into that rule. If you're 300 and you only took 1 unit an hour ago, that 1 unit isn't going to bring your 300 down, right? So we have to kind of use critical thinking to make all these decisions every day. Aaron says, I have so much going on right now that it's really difficult to get all this under control. Cortisone shots for tarsal tunnel syndrome sent blood sugars into 400s for a week. Yeah, I'm so sorry, Aaron. I feel for you. Cortisone shots create such insulin resistance. It's hard. I would just say, work with your provider to figure out what level of increased basal you need, eat lower carb, and, walk around as much as you can to just keep your insulin sensitivity, keep active. You don't have to just work out for half an hour, but if you can fit in lots of little walks, that would be great. So great questions, you guys, today. Great comments. I'm so glad you found me. Please check out my website for more resources, drjodynd.com. And yes, I am still working on my membership program. My dream is to help thousands of type 1s around the world, which of course I can't do just with my one-on-one consulting practice, that I've actually temporary has closed that right now, so I can work more on creating this membership program where we have intelligent and optimistic and educated conversations about all of this stuff, so I can reach endless numbers of you, and give you good training and support. All right, so stay tuned. I don't have a date when that's ready yet because I'm still learning the software and putting out the plans. But I'm so glad you found me. Please sign up for my, my free video. I'm not doing newsletters right now, but I have a newsletter sign up on my website. And that's just a way for me to capture your email so you'll get notified when the membership is ready. So that is at drjodynd.com. And I'll be back on Monday, 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock Eastern. And I'm not sure what that is in Europe and Asia and Australia, but hopefully you can figure that out. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye for now.